article that was about voting. And, okay, stop moving. You're okay, thanks. We talked about voting. We read an article that talked about should voting be mandatory in the U.S., correct?
Mm-hmm.
And in that article, it gave us two sides. It told us why we should, and then it told us why we should not. Again, correct?
Mm-hmm.
You are being given that same question. So now that we read and annotated to gain a deeper understanding of what was being said in the article, now you are going to write an essay. Now your essay, again, though, is being chunked. So you're really only having to focus on the end of your introduction and your body paragraph tomorrow. But today you're focusing on the graphic organizer. Okay? And we're going to walk through this a little bit together because I want to make sure you guys are understanding how to do this. Okay? So, should voting be mandatory is your question. I'm not asking in the U.S. Should voting be mandatory? Okay? The first thing that you have to do is answer the prompt. That's what your thesis statement is for. And when you answer the prompt, what is the effective way that we do that?
With a thesis statement.
Huh?
With a thesis statement.
Yeah, how do you create that thesis statement? What do I say is the easiest, most effective way to create that thesis statement? Obada. By turning the question into a statement. So someone tell me, if you think that yes, it should be mandatory, tell me how I would word that then. Landon.
Voting should be mandatory.
Okay, so voting should be mandatory. Okay, now what if you have the opposite viewpoint? What would I write?
Voting should not.
Voting should not be mandatory. Stop. When we answer the prompt in our thesis, you have to use the words from the prompt and turn it into a statement, which we did, whether you're on one side or the other. Okay, this is just answering the prompt. But you do have the option of being specific. If there's a specific reason why we should or a specific reason why we should not, we can add that specific example. So give me an example of a specific reason why voting should be mandatory. Like
Voting should be mandatory so the government is truly by people.
Say it again.
The voting should be mandatory so the government is truly by the people.
Okay. So voting should be mandatory because it represents everyone. Is that basically what you're saying? Okay, so I kind of reworded it my own way. Because it represents everyone. Now give me a specific reason if it should not be mandatory. I'm going to go with bridge this time.
Because then you have a bunch
Nope,
of
don't just start with because. How do you start it?
voting should not be mandatory because you would have a lot of people who don't really know what's going on.
Who are uninformed, right? Voting should not be mandatory because people, sorry Lucas, I know I'm right up in your room. People are uninformed. Okay, so when you are writing your thesis statement, you have two options in writing that thesis statement. You can either just answer the prompt, just as is, and leave up the whole essay where you can talk about any reasons that you want to, or you can be specific and you can actually put one of your reasons and one of your answers in your thesis statement. But that does mean you are limited in your essay to only focus on these reasons. Now I'm going to walk you through how to complete a graphic organizer through one example of my thesis statements, and I'm going to use that first one over here. So if you choose to decide to be specific in your answer, you need to make sure that you're following this correctly. Okay, so my thesis statement I'm going to choose is voting should be mandatory because it represents everyone. Okay, so that goes in this box. Everyone should be looking at my board. You're not following or you're not writing this on your own. Voting should be mandatory because it represents everyone. Oops, it's a weird B. Okay? Now, when we write our topic sentences, how do we write our topic sentence? Gannon?
It's kind of like your thesis statement, so you kind of just rewording it. So you could say,
I'm going to stop you real fast. But yes, you're on the right track. Okay? He's exactly right. You take your thesis statement and you basically say the same thing. You say the same thing, but you word it differently, right? However, one thing that I want to point out and I want to be specific about is if you choose to be specific and have a specific answer in your thesis statement, your topic sentence has to relate to this. You're not really including the other part. You want to talk about rewording this. So what did Blake mean? It represents everyone. If voting is mandatory, it will represent everyone. What is that basically meaning? I'm going to go with Finley this time.
That everybody should have a voice.
Everyone, good. Everyone will have a voice if what happens?
If everybody votes.
If everyone votes. If we all vote. We'll say that. Same idea, okay? But you just want to make sure that you're focusing on this answer. Now, when you have this as your thesis statement, voting should not be mandatory. All you have to do is reword this part. But if you have a specific answer, you have to reword this part as your topic sentence. Then we provide examples. What are some examples? What are some things that the text said in the article or that we know of? When we talk about that, mandatory voting will represent everyone. Let me actually, does anybody have their article pulled up? Because I can't use my example because I don't have my iPad.
just has it.
Is your notability not working? They're going to need 4 of that. It's in Tuesday's folders. Here we go. You don't have to export it. Okay, so in the article, you're okay with touching your iPad? It says that in the yes column, we're talking about it, everyone's voice will be heard. It says mandatory voting is the best way best way to get politicians to focus their attention on all Americans. Wealthier people are more likely to vote, so government policies are often geared toward their interests. In general, the people who don't vote are the ones being left behind. People who are unemployed, poor, or less educated. So, what did you just hear in that article when it comes to who does currently vote? Who is it normally geared to? The wealthy people. Okay, so right now, rich people are currently represented. Which means our candidates, our campaigns are geared towards who? Rich people. Candidates gear campaigns to portion of population. If voting was mandatory,
That would happen.
then where would their campaigns be geared towards? Everyone.
Everyone.
Mandatory voting makes campaigns, stop bouncing, whatever's bouncing. No, it's you, Rich, stop it. Amanda makes the campaigns geared to everyone. Okay, again, this is me quickly getting my thoughts out. Bullet points. Okay, which means here's what I'm going to explain after my topic sentence in my body paragraph. I really hope people are paying attention right now. Really, really hoping. Okay, so now what do I need to add? Text evidence. Okay. Let me get back into your iPad again. Okay, remember, what is text evidence? Like,
Something that you pull directly out of the article.
it's literally directly, word for word from the article.
But
She's got it.
But you can't. But you have to
Yeah.
write their last name, and you also have to.
So I'm going to do that, and then you're going to tell me what I need to add. Okay, so this sentence right here. Mandatory voting is the best. Mandatory voting is the best way to get politicians to focus their attention on all Americans. Does that sentence support what I'm trying to say over here?
Yes.
So I'm going to copy that verbatim. Mandatory, and you're just going to have to bear with me because I'm literally going to copy it all. Voting is the best way to get politicians to focus their attention on all Americans. Now, I pulled that word for word. Currently, I'm plagiarizing because I can't use somebody else's word as my own, right? So what do I need to add?
Need to add the
Noah, sorry, Noah hasn't talked yet. Awesome. Quotations at the beginning and end. That's the first thing we have to do. And then Gannon, because you're so excited, what else do I need to add?
You have to add the last name.
Author's last name, which I'm going to use the person actually wrote it, which was the professor. Her name was Lisa Hills. So I'm going to put Hills
And page.
and page number, which was, what page was I on? The second page. Okay? In parentheses. Where does my period go? At the very end right here. Okay? So, this is what you are doing today. This is helping you organize your thoughts and figure out, does everything connect? Am I answering it correctly? But I really wanted to focus on that topic sentence up here.